Some songs hit so hard while you're watching a show that they seem to stick to you more than the scene itself. Especially when paired with amazing writing that can amplify your feelings in a way you didn't think was possible. They are like glue that imprints those images in your mind forever. And yes, that also goes for the morally dubious puppets. Today I'd like to go in depth on a topic that really interests me, which is how and why the Moral Orel soundtrack absolutely heightens the narrative, the direction, and the characters of the show. Because after looking a bit more in depth into the choices that were made in the show surrounding music, the episodes just feel insurmountably better. Now, I do have a comprehensive video essay on the whole show you can check out if you feel a bit out of the loop. This one is mostly just for people who have already watched the show, just to expand on what really made me fall in love with it. I also want to start by saying that this video is going to tackle some pretty heavy topics. This is Moral Orel, so if you're sensitive to anything mentioned on screen, feel free to sit this one out. It's totally okay. So, as you may have guessed, I abso-fucking-lutely love Moral Orel. It's been my obsession for almost 3 years now, and my introduction to some absolute bangers. The show is kind of linked to the song No Children by the Goats, for example, featured in the episode Numb, with the band's official TikTok account even posting a Moral Orel edit on their page to the track, and I can fully see why. However, my goal in this video will be to dissect most of the songs in the show, obviously including No Children, which I feel were all very expertly selected, and analyze their significance within the narrative. I'll start with the episode that contained the Goats, as they're the most recognizable and all pretty much interlinked with Clay and Roberta's storylines, so Numb, Help, and Passing, featuring respectively No Children, All Call It Try, and Love Love Love, moving on to the two episodes centered on Coach Subframe that feature artist Ciaoo Perry with Satan in Honor, featuring Saturday and Valentine, and finally one of the less recognized but incredible music choices in the show, Savoy's Bottomless Pit in the episode Sacrifice. This really is just me using this platform to scream into the void about my favorite piece of media to ever exist, and spare the poor souls in my real-life circle from having to listen to me yap about a show that was cancelled 17 years ago and is not even available in their first language. So, sorry guys. Now let's try to make of this what we can. The Goats are first featured on the show in the episode 1 of Season 3, Numb, with the track No Children. This takes place immediately after the Nature two-parter and Season 2 finale, when our protagonist Orel's innocence is shattered after his father Clay shoots him during their hunting trip. So really, the first purpose of replacing the peppy theme song with No Children is to mark the end of the show's innocence as well as Orel's, who is basically not present throughout the episode. That's because the real focus is his mother Roberta, as we get to see her perspective of the hunting trip weekend as she's basically home alone. The whole episode is a subversion of the housewife trope in sitcoms, where said housewife is usually relegated to a supporting role for her husband and kids. Here, Roberta tries repeatedly to have an affair with multiple men in town and ultimately harms herself to keep going to the hospital and visiting Dr. Potterswheel, who has a fetish for gore and mutilation. She eventually stops, the doctor lets her go as he's not interested in her right after her wounds start to heal, and the episode ends with Orel and Clay's return from the hunting trip, where we see the couple lay in bed, lifeless and numb, as No Children plays again. The episode is fundamentally about Roberta's perpetual feeling of emptiness in her marriage, her desire to be wanted, all while the audience already knows that on the other side of the screen, her husband is destroying their son physically and psychologically, as alcoholism rearing its real, monstrous head for the first time in the series. But why this song? Why No Children? Other than the fact that it's beautiful, musically speaking, once you pay a bit of attention to the lyrics, the reason seems obvious. I hope it stays dark forever, I hope the worst isn't over, and I hope you blink before I do, and I hope I never get sober. In my life, I hope I lie and tell everyone you're a good wife, and I hope you die, I hope we both die. The singer, songwriter, guitarist, and keyboardist of the Goats, John Darnielle, who is going to be coming up a whole lot in this video, has two recurring characters in his music. Specifically in the album Tallahassee, in which No Children and Old College Try, that we'll later see in Help, are featured in. These two characters are the alpha couple, two people in a miserable, codependent relationship who are bound only by addiction and self-destruction. Tallahassee, Florida is supposedly the last place they lived in together. Now, does my previous description ring a bell? I'm pretty sure No Children is the most famous alpha song, not to mention the most famous Goats song in general, and it's been talked about plenty. but there's something very interesting I've seldom seen mentioned when speaking about the show. The track is named No Children because the best outcome for the alpha couple is for them to never procreate. And I find it just a little bit amusing and really sad at the same time that Clay and Roberta, while they mirror the lyrics of so many alpha songs so well, actually do have not one, but 2 kids, and the episode this track is featured in is linked to the one that cements at least Clay as one of the most horrible fathers in adult animation. Clay and Roberta are the alpha couple, based in Morton and with children, so it doesn't really get worse than that. No Children in Moral Orel has been the introduction to the man and goats for a lot of people, and it definitely was so for me. I feel like it's become its own theme song for the show in a way, and I'm not complaining because I absolutely love it. However, since I feel like it's been already talked about in basically every Moral Orel video I've seen and in a much less waffly way, I like to move on.
Roberta.
Yes, Clay?
You help hold my head up so it doesn't fall and hurt like no one has in a long time. So, I should keep you.
Old College Try is featured in the 7th episode of Season 3, Help. As you may know, it's a flashback episode on how Clay and Roberta got married in the first place. It's honestly one of the most divisive episodes of the series. Not because the viewers are split on whether it's well written or not, it's undoubtedly one of the best, but because some people have taken it as a way to completely see Roberta as the evil one in their relationship. As it's revealed that at the wedding reception where they met, the woman introduced Clay to drinking for the first time before manipulating him into marrying her due to extreme societal pressure, effectively ruining him in the minds of some. But aside from the fact that we've all gotten plastered at least once in our lives, and I like to think that the majority of people on Earth don't start harassing women right after a couple of drinks, that's definitely not the point of the episode, and I think that the song choice helped to elucidate that. Old College Try is the 12th track in Tallahassee, and it is yet again an alpha song. We hear it at the beginning of the episode as half-cut pictures from the couple's wedding play out. We hear it in the middle, where Clay gets shit-faced and Roberta momentarily gives up on him after seeing the first red flags in the man, and we hear it from Clay's proposal monologue till the end, where we finally see how their wedding went down. No Children only plays in Numb when Clay and Roberta are effectively under the same roof, and Old College Try is similarly intelligently placed. Let's check out some of the lyrics. From the housetops to the gutters, from the ocean to the shore, the warning signs have all been bright and garish, far too great in number to ignore. From the cities to the swamplands, from the highways to the hills, our love has never had a leg to stand on, from the aspirins to the crosstops to the Ellavilles. But I will walk down to the end with you, if you will come all the way down with me. The lyrics purposefully sound like wedding vows, only it's about how even in such a short period of time that Alpha A and Alpha B, or for the sake of this video, Clay and Roberta knew each other, the warning signs of their relationship were immediately obvious, yet promptly ignored. The speaker will go down and down until they hit rock bottom, but only if they can drag their spouse down with them in their pit of misery. And that's exactly what happens in the episode. Clay and Roberta meet each other for a day. They immediately see how one of them is incredibly manipulative and the other shows no sign of restraint around substances, which are both things that should be immediate deal breakers, yet because of the pressure that comes in religious, narrow-minded communities to get married as young and as fast as possible, especially when it comes to women, they stick together. They're already miserable as they walk down the aisle. Their loveless relationship has already established itself before the vows. Clay gets arrested during the wedding, and yet they'll always be together. They'll always give their relationship the old college try. This is definitely one of the strongest song choices in the show, and personally, I think it stuck with me even more than No Children. Both Numb and Help are beautifully directed, but this particular scene, the way it's composed, with Roberta holding Clay completely alone in the place that effectively doomed them forever, it's going to stick for a long while. And it feels crazy to say that, it still sort of pales in comparison to what's to come. Passing, the episode that comes right after Help, narrates Clay's childhood, and it serves to explain, not justify, his actions throughout the show. More specifically, how he grew to view a relationship, and subsequently, how he acts towards the people he maybe loves, more specifically Orel. So, this episode is a knife to the chest, definitely one of the most emotionally impactful installments of the series, and it has managed to make me cry more times than I'd like to admit. However, here we don't just want to cry, we want to understand why we cry. Here we learn that Clay was raised with two completely opposing parenting styles. The first time we meet his father Arthur is when he explains to him the hunting trip Poppington tradition, trying to make him hold Old Gunny and shape him into a more stereotypical masculine ideal, while his mother Angela, whom Clay is extremely attached to, is not only horrified at the idea of her son holding a weapon, but is generally extremely overbearing, infantilizing, and enabling. We find out that this is because the woman had 10 miscarriages with resulting heart problems due to smoking and drinking, which, while being comedic due to the sheer number of them, is also pretty sad considering how it's understandable that after suffering the loss of 10 kids, she would hold on to Clay as much as she did. However, this leads the boy to think he's not her precious only ever anymore, so he pretends to shoot himself with Old Gunny, which is obviously horrifying for a parent to witness, and due to Angela's heart condition, she ends up passing through a stroke. Arthur wants to hit Clay, but he stops himself, delivering what is possibly one of the most important lines throughout the series.
You're not even worth it.
This is where Love, Love, Love by the Mountain Goats comes in. After Angela's death and the subsequent departure of the most important person in Clay's life, the colors of the house, previously warm and comforting, have dampened, and the song plays as we see the boy trying to push his father to hit him, so that he can prove to him that he's worth it. This ultimately ends with Arthur ending the hunting trip tradition and leaving Clay alone, failing to provoke him yet again. Love, Love, Love resumes playing, and we see that this is what haunts his thoughts when he's drinking alone in his study. Despite the show being in stop motion, the expression of agony on Clay's face during the end credits, it's truly impactful and it's almost human restraint, and this is cemented as one of the best Moral Orel episodes, at least for me. However, once again, one of the factors that makes this installment so powerful is the choice of music. Love, Love, Love is not in Tallahassee, and it is not an alpha song. It's in the album The Sunset Tree, and it's an autobiographical piece about John Darnielle's horrifying childhood trauma inflicted by his stepfather and ultimately his death and the feelings that come with it and the psychological effects of abuse overall. It's a very heavy listen, but ultimately one for all survivors to relate to. Love, Love, Love is one of the more interesting tracks in my opinion, and ultimately an amazing choice within the context of the show and the episode it's featured in. Raskolnikov felt sick, but he couldn't say why when he saw his face reflected in his victim's twinkling eye. Some things you do for money, and some you do for fun, but the things you do for love are gonna come back to you one by one. Raskolnikov is the protagonist of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, in which he debates himself over his feelings of guilt after killing a pawnbroker early in the novel. Throughout the song, John Darnielle references multiple historical, biblical, and generally popular figures such as Joseph's stepbrothers in the Old Testament who sold him into slavery, Sonny Liston, who wrapped Tiger Bomb in his glove to blind Muhammad Ali during a match, and Kurt Cobain, referencing his suicide letter where he mentioned that he loved too much. All of these people, whether real or fictional, have committed acts that some regard as selfish or self-destructive. Mostly, not all, in the name of personal gain. However, Darnielle's song is mostly about how humans are able to rot strong feelings into monstrous actions, including love, which is mostly, if not always, regarded as a pure, positive force. We can do horrible, horrible things in the name of what we perceive to be love, but really is control, obsession, jealousy, and violence. And this, once again, combines perfectly with passing. Angela's overbearing affection comes back around as Clay's need for a motherly figure even in adulthood. Arthur's abandonment comes back around as Clay's equation of worth with physical punishment. And Clay's broken idea of what love is comes back around as the abuse he now inflicts on Orel. And before ending this section, while this may seem pretty obvious, that's not okay. Like I said earlier, the episodes serve to show how generational trauma can affect individuals. And just because Clay's idea of love is tied to abuse, that does not make him any less abusive towards the child he's supposed to protect. Now, I can't really say anything more on this that wouldn't be redundant, so let's close the Mountain Goat section before moving to the slightly lighter in tone, yet in my opinion, equally deserving acts. TMG were an amazing addition to an already amazing show. They're only featured in episodes about Clay and Berta, which is incredibly fitting, and it's no surprise that Numb, Help, and Passing have basically become unofficial music videos to these three tracks. They're partially to thank for how tragic and impactful Season 3 was, and they are truly the mark for the complete 180 the show took in regards to its tone. Just like Clay and Roberta had their signature leitmotif, another character has been given the same approach. There are 2 episodes centering Danielle's top frame: Gin Coach to Orel, Secret Lover to Clay, and Illegitimate Baby Daddy to Roberta. And those are the Season 2 Episode 3, Satan, and Season 3 finale, Honor, with Saturday and Valentine. This is a quick aside, but while I was looking into Ayu Perry's discography to find more of her work, I actually found out that Dino Stamatopoulos, the main writer of Moral Orel, actually made a musical graphic novel called Trent with Ayu Perry and Scott Adsit, Clay's voice actor, who has a very beautiful singing voice in his own right. The project was later re-recorded with Britta Phillips, who starred as practically every woman in the show, but demos with Ayu Perry's voice are still out there and they're amazing. It's a tragedy surrounding a couple dealing with the fallout of miscarriage. I highly recommend it. With that out of the way, let's try to dissect the use of her songs in the show. Like I said, the first time we hear Ayu Perry's music is in the episode Satan. Now, it's not a tragic one like the aforementioned ones, but it is still very interesting within the context of the series. We see Danielle constantly shift between Christianity and Satanism based on what will get him closer to Clay, while the while leads him on but doesn't fully commit to their relationship, mostly due to internalized homophobia and the fear of losing his standing in Moralton. This is in spite of the fact that they're not particularly discreet about their mutual attraction, but I digress. Danielle is completely obsessed with Clay, so much so that he had sex with Roberta in order to get closer to him, resulting in the birth of Orel's little brother Ciaoo, which is a faulty plan, but you know what? It's still better than bringing Orel to a Satanist ritual as a sacrificial virgin. At least nothing happens in the end, but God, this guy has issues. Ultimately, Satan is the reason that Clay and Danielle's relationship can't work. They do love each other, at least up until the finale, but the former's lack of commitment and the latter's batshit crazy obsession is an even harder obstacle for their relationship than Moralton itself. And once again, Saturday reflects that perfectly. Let's look at the lyrics. How I miss you, when you coming home, where you been to, you can telephone. This is the time when I start finding out their love is just a passing thought. You know it kills me when you're gone so long. Said I'm sorry, oh, I was wrong. It's hard to see things how they are. Looking closely, but it's very hard. I kiss you on a Saturday. I miss you even more today. The speaker seems to constantly seek out their lover, who does not seem to be as invested in the relationship, to say the least. Danielle keeps pictures of Clay all over his home, even some probably taken without his knowledge. When he has dinner, he sets the table for 2. They almost kiss every time they're at the bar together, but Clay eventually pulls away. In a certain case, he pulls away and gets seduced by Miss Enserdal, the librarian, while Danielle is in the same room, which is what eventually ends their relationship in the finale. Honor is the last episode of Moral Orel, and as I mentioned before, it marks the end of the relationship between Clay and Danielle. After witnessing the disturbing display, the latter completely loses all of his respect for his lover, and he pairs up with Orel, without trying to sacrifice him this time, who is trying to find a reason to honor his father after what happened in nature. The episode takes place on Christmas, which is significant considering not only that the show itself started airing in 2005 around that time, but because narratively speaking, it takes place exactly a year after the season 1 finale, The Best Christmas Ever, where Orel was left alone due to a particularly ugly fight between Clay and Roberta about the conception of Ciaoo, which directly implicates Danielle. The time spent between him and Orel in this episode is very sweet, if it wasn't for Clay spying them in the background and ultimately breaking into Danielle's apartment, where he finally realizes it's too late. The Puppingtons go home, with their dynamic even more wrecked than it was before, but we do get to see Orel grow up in a flash forward, letting us know that he broke the cycle, never stopped believing in God, and is finally able to have a beautiful, healthy family of his own, accompanied by one last sermon by the Reverend Putty.
Well, a lot of times, family is just a bunch of people who are forced to be together just because they came out of each other. But every so often... a miracle happens.
Now, undoubtedly this ending is slightly rushed, but I cannot blame the writing team given that the show was pulled off the air for the dumbest reason. However, let's focus on Valentine. Valentine here is placed, yet again, in a way that greatly amplifies the impact of the episode. It plays in the beginning as bits throughout all the seasons flash by, it plays while Danielle and Orel go about their Christmas day, and it plays right at the end where we see Orel morph into the loving father and husband he was bound to be. The tune is melancholic yet really strong at the same time, and it works so well as the song that accompanies the end of Danielle and Clay's relationship and the end of the series with it. It's not your time, my Valentine. It wasn't the time for the show to be cancelled either, but oh well. Overall, Valentine is a sort of a continuation of the theme of the dynamic between the two men. Clay has been pulling away for too long, and now it's too late. This is unfortunately really common in same-sex relationships, especially, but not only in conservative communities, and while Clay and Danielle would probably still be a toxic pairing, I would say it's sadly relatable for anyone who has had to deal with internalized homophobia in their relationships, even without the illegitimate child or the satanic rituals. Ultimately, Ciaoo Perry is a great addition to the soundtrack, and I highly recommend adding not only Saturday and Valentine to your playlist, but some of their other works as well. My personal favorite is the song Olive. It's in the same album as Valentine, Split Yourself in Two, and overall her voice is angelic, and there's a reason if she caught Dina's attention. For the last section, I'd like to go back from Honor to the third to last episode of Season 3, and my personal favorite of all, Sacrifice.
Now, usually nothing is a downer. One big goose egg. Well, this time the goose laid a golden egg, people. Nothing meant hope for everyone. So the next time you look and see nothing, have a little hope, will ya?
Sacrifice is an entirely character-driven episode, mostly taking place at Forgetty's bar on Easter, where Clay skips church to drink and finds himself with Reverend Patty, Officer Papermouth, and Dr. Potterswheel, ultimately going on a rant about his perceived lack of masculinity, his resentment against women, and ultimately the hate that consumes him and everything that surrounds him. He pushes the other men's buttons so much that they almost beat him, but they end up leaving. He's not even worth it. So, he gets in his car and goes back to the Moreton Nature Reserve to retrieve the bear Orel shot during the Season 2 finale, while his son finally realizes that his family will never be like it was before. This episode, more specifically at this moment, is accompanied by Savoy's Bottomless Pit. Savoy is a Norwegian-American trio, and once again, I really recommend you give them a listen. The lyrics of the song paint a clear picture. The speaker desperately wants to repair the relationship between them and the person they're singing to, but the other feels completely hopeless, so the speaker ultimately gives up. You say you wouldn't do, it wouldn't shake, it wouldn't make any waves, it wouldn't be no use. And you being you know sure how to phrase it, and I being I just have to embrace it, don't I? Clay, at this point of the show, is completely entrenched in this hateful pit. He has given up on putting a front for his son, for his wife, for the other men in town, and Orel has resigned himself to it. His last line in the episode, once again,
golly, things sure have changed around here.
Bottomless Pit was a golden discovery for me personally. It's a beautiful song with a wonderful guitar riff, melodically speaking, and lyrically, it's as crushing as you'd expect by now. Unfortunately, after Sacrifice, I think it's time to wrap up. So, Moral Orel is probably one of the best adult animated shows in general, and I think that it would be just slightly less breathtaking without the music chosen for it. The Modern Goats are obviously the first that come to mind. They become my favorite band over the years, and I have to thank Moral Orel for it, but I hope that this video was able to make you discover other artists that you may grow to love just like I did. The song also featured other acts like And I'm So Sorry, this is a tongue twister for me, okay? The Dan Emery Mystery Band, with other people's tongues in the episode that introduces Stephanie, and I highly recommend you give that a listen as well, along with some of the original songs written by Dino, who is clearly extremely talented as a songwriter and composer. Music is one of the most important parts of a piece of media, at least for me, and Moral Orel specifically has managed to make me feel so deeply for the characters through it. I swear, nothing compares to the nights I spent pacing around my room when I was watching the show for the first time, just trying to process what I was seeing with all college try and no children blasting in my earbuds. And I hope you're able to feel so deeply for it as well, now that you hopefully know a bit more about it. And hopefully, you enjoyed listening to me yapping for a while. You can stay for more by subscribing to my channel, or you can leave. In that case, thanks anyways for sticking by. For anyone else, thank you, and I'm so excited to see you next time. This has been Bittersweet Tooth. Arrivederci.